Alright, hey guys, I know it's been a really long time since the last time I made a video. I've tried to put together a couple of different ones, trying to explain a couple of different photography concepts, a couple of tutorial-like things, but I never really got them to the point where I was happy with them, and then the next thing I knew, the winter holidays were upon us, and I had to get stuff done at work if I intended to go on a little bit of a vacation from my winter holidays. Which, by the way, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, happy Boxing Day, happy Christmas, happy New Year, happy winter solstice. I've got to be missing something. I'm probably missing something, and someone will probably hate me in the comments for it, assuming I get any comments on this video. I don't have that many viewers, if any, right now. But I wanted to create a video to once again reiterate and remind both myself and the people who will be watching this why I'm doing what I'm doing here. A lot of my photography and the stuff that I'm putting up here is a part of my adventures around the world. I am not a professional. I don't generally do this for hire. I have had people tell me that my work looks professional, and I have done some for hire events. But my day job is actually IT. I'm the guy you call when the internet goes down. It's what I actually do for a living. That said, the people that I work for, it's rather lucrative. I've gotten to travel a lot of places around the world. That's why I got into photography in the first place. And I wanted to bring a little bit of that to people back home, other people around the world. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be putting a few of the images that I've taken. I'm going to put together a bit of a collage with some music behind it. I'm going to have to find some Creative Commons licensed music. Unfortunately, this isn't going to be one of those really cool montages with some well-known rock band in the background. I'm sorry. But while I'm here making this video, pointing that out, also want to let you guys know that I've gone a long way with doing my film projects, and you're going to see some of those images coming up shortly. A lot of it is due in part to the fact that I went out and I bought me a used Nikon F5. What I can tell you is that there are a lot of reasons why this camera is referred to sometimes as the legend, because as far as any film camera I have ever shot with, if it was my old Canon Rebel K2, which I gave to a friend of mine a long time ago, if it was my old Pentax point and shoot, or the Nikon FM10, or my mom's old Advanix camera, any of my 110 film cameras that I had when I was just a wee little kid, any of those cameras pale in comparison to this guy and just how much of a dream he is to use. It's easy, it's straightforward, it's reliable, it's rugged, it's all that in a bag of chips. In addition to that recent piece of equipment that I've added to my repertoire, I also purchased a light meter from Sekonic, which I always kind of relied on the one in camera, but when I look at what the light meter itself tells me for the incident light and what the camera tells me for reflected light, I get a quality image from the reflected light in camera, in its meter, yes, but the shadows and stuff just tend to fall better. I got highlights in all the right places when I use the incident light. Although sometimes you do wind up with a blown out background if you're not paying attention to your entire scene. So need to learn more and be careful with that. And that's also going to come in ridiculously handy for film, because I can't chimp with film. Once I've shot it, it's done. It's shot, and then I develop it, and then I pull out the film strip, and I hope I've got something. And I have managed to have a few successes with that. If you'll excuse me while I pull a semi-botched roll out of my scanner here. These are actually two of the film strips that I cut, which there were no errors, there was no celluloid touching celluloid. Some of these images actually came out quite nice, and you'll see a few of them also in a minute. But evolving steadily, learning more and more every day, which is one of the reasons why I make this channel. And it really is a pleasure and enjoyment. I hope you enjoy the photos. And I hope to eventually start providing some of my own tutorials on how to do film. Pardon me while I fall out of frame for a little bit. And one of the videos that I originally tried to do, the one that I told you I failed repeatedly, was one where I was going to attempt to explain Aperture. What it is, what it does. Easiest way I've found to explain Aperture, because it doesn't take long, is you have your lens, like so. It has a hole in it so you can see through it. That hole, the hole itself, is your iris. When you increase the size of that iris, your aperture number, or your f-stop, will go down. f1.4, 2.2, 2.8, those numbers themselves are actually a ratio of the size of this hole to the length of this lens. I don't know the exact calculations, I'd have to look those up. If I find them, I'll put them in the description of the video below. But as your aperture gets wider, you allow in more light, which allows you to have a faster shutter speed, which is pretty cool for capturing motion. But it also gives you a really, really shallow depth of field the wider you get, which, if you're far enough away from things that you're focused out to infinity, not a problem. If you're focused in at, say, how close can we get with this one? Say you're focused in at 0.45 meters, which is, that's less than a foot away. Your depth of field is going to get really shallow. Like, I could focus, at minimum focus distance, I could focus on one of your eyes, and the tip of your nose is going to fall outside the depth of field, which is not a very aesthetically pleasing image. So you have to keep in mind when you're working with your apertures, where do you want your depth of field? Yes, this aperture is good for the amount of light that I want to come in and the shutter speed that I want so I can freeze the motion, but is it really going to work with the background blur? Or am I going to really begin to lose parts of the image that I want in focus because my depth of field is so shallow? Contrary to that, you have a really, really tiny aperture, you're going to have a really, really slow shutter speed to account for the loss of light. And your depth of field is going to be really, really deep. Now, with each lens, there's a certain range of apertures normally that those images just seem to come out a little bit sharper than the rest of what that lens will produce. This is because when you get to a certain point where you're capturing in the largest part in the middle of the lens, it's actually sharp. That's when you're going to get some of your best images. If your aperture is shrunk all the way down, your depth of field is going to be maxed out, but you're shooting through such a small portion of that glass that overall sharpness is probably going to start to drop again. Whereas if you're shooting really, really wide, your depth of field is just too shallow to get that crazy sharpness. Now, there are some lenses that really, really mitigate this, where it doesn't matter what aperture you're shooting at, they are tack sharp throughout their entire range. I believe Zeiss recently released a 50mm lens that was huge, with a price tag of a little over $4,000 US. But the performance on that thing is absolutely outright undeniable. But the trade-off is the fact that it's physically very, very large, it's a very heavy and a very expensive lens. It's not just one that you can run around traveling with, which is kind of fun to run around traveling with a 50mm. I kind of like the fact that this is a very compact lens. I can throw it in the front of my camera. It's unobtrusive, it's just the right length. Fun lens. But that's Aperture in a nutshell. Now on to some of the images that I've taken over the past year in 2013. Some of them are going to be shot from a film camera, others are going to be shot on digital. We're going to have some in black and white, some in color. All of the film ones are going to be in black and white, because black and white film is all I actually have shot so far. I have yet to make C41 process work, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the montage.